Hello, folks. Good evening. How are you? Hope you've been having a great week so far. Hope everybody has been enjoying the weather wherever you are, because the weather seems to be good in most parts of the world, including here in Dublin, Ireland. Hope in Nigeria the weather has been great as well. Everybody has had something interesting to say the whole of this week, especially concerning all the new policies and stuff that's coming out from Nigeria. People have been asking questions. People have been wondering if this is going to destroy business in Nigeria as is, especially in Lagos, which is the financial capital of Nigeria. A lot of policies, have been put into play, and who knows? Are they good for business? Are they bad for business? We don't know. But we're not here to talk about that today. Today, we're here to talk about affordable housing in Nigeria. Affordable housing is supposed to be something that, most people should have access to. In most developed countries, it's a matter of focus for the governments. They try to, provide affordable housing as much as they can. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, affordable housing doesn't exactly mean affordable, quote and unquote, for whatever reason we don't know. Now, the strange thing is this. The affordable housing market in Nigeria is valued at well over $70 billion over the span of 10 years, starting from about 2017 to 2027. How come, you don't have heavy investments in that sector? When you talk of things like, raw materials, or you talk of, materials to use for building, you talk of cement, for instance. You have the largest manufacturer of cement in Africa, domiciled in Nigeria. His business started from Nigeria. And cement is more expensive in Nigeria than anywhere else. And again, you start to wonder why. Why is that happening? Now, that has led us, to ask around a bit to try to figure it out are there cheaper ways of building houses? Is there an easier way for people to access, affordable housing so that more families, can own homes? Home ownership is something that is culturally important in Africa, especially in Nigeria. All over Nigeria, regardless of whatever part of Nigeria you come from, regardless of what I don't like to use the word tribes, but that's what they call it. Regardless of what ethnic composition you come from, is of utmost importance when it comes to home ownership. People live and die for land. Yes, that's a universal and a global issue where people fight over land. Even Israel is annexing or making an attempt to annex Palestine. Some parts of Palestine again, to try to expand their land holdings. So land is key. And of course, land leads to agriculture and of course, housing. So this evening, we're going to bring on an architect, an eco-architect. He's also a sustainable design expert, and he's a modern space utilization advocate, always trying to find unique and incredible ways to try to bring housing to the average, individual anywhere in the world using unique, incredible designs. As a matter of fact, he's based in Australia. So he decided to join us from Australia, even though it's 5 a.m. over there. Was it 4 a.m.? I can't remember, but I know it's like in the early hours over in Australia. His name is James Inedu George, and we're going to bring him into the studio right about now. Hello, James.
Hello, Habib. It's nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on, and you're looking, sharp as usual.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Are you related to Wole Soyinka? Because this is your beard, man. One has to ask.
I used to be Ojuku before, but then when they heard it now turned to Wole Soyinka. So.
That's pretty interesting. That's really, really nice. So it's fantastic to have you on board. We know we've been trying to do that for quite a while, but you're always busy. So many things going on where you are concerned. You're always designing things. You're always coming up with new concepts, innovative ways, to get, housing across to people. Can you tell us a little bit more, about your sustainable designs or sustainable design theory, so to speak? What school of, thoughts do you come from in terms of, design?
For us at a little firm HTL in Nigeria, we walk around the world, and what we've realized about buildings is that buildings are, for every human being, for every 10 human beings, also there's about one building, or 20 human beings, there's about one building.
Yeah.
So buildings are taking up more environmental space every day than we are.
Every day. Yeah.
And therefore, those buildings have to be more responsible than we are as people. So our basic theory is that a building must be a citizen so that we can
Oh
attribute to
wow.
it the functions of a citizen. It must
Yeah.
provide for the economics of its environment. It must contribute to the life cycle of its environment, and it must pay its weight in gold to its environment. Now,
Environment.
that
Okay.
being said, we have a peculiar problem globally, but let's start from Nigeria. We have a situation where, even though culturally, the mark of a human being in where we come from, where from Nigeria, is to have a house and to build it yourself.
Yeah.
We have reached a point where we're so enthralled with what's happening in the world that we've forgotten our actual position within life and the world generally. So we are now buyers of houses, are not buyers of affordable houses, but we're buyers of any house. So when the market pegs a price that is not affordable, people don't revolt and look for an affordable solution. So what
Yeah.
we're trying to do at HTL is to flood the market with cheaper, more compact houses. We believe that the time for the compact house is now. That the house of the past, that large house with its rooms that
Yeah.
can be maintained, we believe that that time is over. Therefore, it's our duty to create a compact housing system that can flood the market and reduce the housing deficit. Most importantly, however, we want to create a business around it that ensures the delivery of those houses to people who ordinarily don't have that kind of opportunity. So HTL is constantly making new types of housing that are cheaper to plug into different parts of the economic stream and to plug into different parts of the social strata that can not only act as houses and accommodation, but can provide an economic base for its users, can help the environment to perform better. And note that we're not saying help save the environment. We believe that
Yeah.
we should use architecture as a beacon to make the environment perform better. Therefore, our buildings, as their citizens, are also very performative. They are not just buildings; they are economic systems, they are farms, they are energy generation systems. So that where you have a problem with the national grid, for instance, or you have a problem with the water grid, for instance, your house becomes that bastion of hope that can change that for you. So your
Yeah.
house contributes to your living, it contributes to your environment, and it contributes to the general economy of the land. That's what affordable housing should do. It doesn't do that in the world, but that's what affordable housing should do.
Okay. So now, when you say, you believe that the buildings should be citizens, are you saying that those buildings should be paying tax from their own pocket? Are you saying they should have, human-like functions, or what exactly? We know that, when it comes to sustainable design, for instance, sustainable design basically should be something that will help to drive not just the community forward, but also the way that the individual who resides or interacts with those buildings should think.
Mm.
But buildings can't think. So when you say these buildings should be citizens, how do you correlate the two?
Okay, you see, what thinking is generally is systematic. Human beings think
Yeah.
in a systematic fashion. Though your thoughts might change every day, your thoughts are
Yeah.
based on a systematic pattern that you develop from birth. That's what a building is too. Like much like a building has a brain system. So what we're trying to do is to tweak that system of that building into from a dead thing to a living system where all the functions are so interconnected and so compact that everything it reacts to every stimulus around it, the sun, the wind, changing lifestyles and things like that, in a way that from everything that touches that building, it can generate something. When the sun touches it, it generates energy. When the wind touches it, it generates energy. When the sun touches it again, it gives the plants that are planted on it and in it, it gives them sustenance. So by doing that, it becomes a conduit for and creating energy. It's paying its taxes through the energy because it has reduced your burden to the state. Therefore, if you're paying X amount of dollars or naira to the state, you're not paying X amount of dollars plus another Y amount of dollars for light. You're paying X amount of dollars because of your being part of the state. Your house is also ensuring that that light has been cut out so you can save Y amount of dollars, which means you can spend more, which means that the state then makes VAT and the cycle. If the building has plugged itself like a human being into that cycle and it has improved the chain. This is what I'm saying.
Wow. Now, a lot of people who are probably watching this now will be a bit confused because they'll be like, man, this Ogas Oyinbo, how do we relate? You know what I mean? Now, what's, culturally, home ownership is something that, is of immense importance to the average African, Nigerians in particular. It is something that we believe that if you don't have, then, you don't belong with human beings. You actually belong with animals, because even animals look for shelter. That is how deeply ingrained, home ownership is. But home ownership is so expensive in Nigeria, especially when you go to major cities like Lagos, or you go to Abuja or Port Harcourt or Owerri. People have been looking for ways to try to have modern-looking buildings that are affordable. What I have, been wondering is this. Growing up several years ago, when I was in secondary school, say for instance, in FGC Kaduna, when I went to ABU Zaria, I noticed that there were cooperatives that were formed by people, and they used local resources to build their homes. So they came together as a group, and they helped somebody build that person's own house using mud, water, sand, and some hay. And they built those houses. Now, a lot of those houses, when you look at them, especially the ones that were built several years ago, when you look at historical sites in Nigeria, there are some buildings that have been built with those local sustainable materials for well over 300, 400 years. Why are we spending so much buying cement when cement is the most expensive in Nigeria where it is being manufactured, as opposed to other, African countries where it is exported to? Why can't Nigerians access affordable housing?
That's a very tricky question. But let's start with the local materials so that people understand exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
If I can, the best way to explain this is we have a traditional system of thinking, building, etc. Cultural, and all our cultural bases are tied to that. That is really strong, extremely beautiful, and well thought out. Then there's a European system that works in a certain way, that has its own positives. We've jumped from one system to the other. With one system comes a building material that can provide heat when it's cold when it's hot, And in the other place, another material by the forces of the market, another material has been labeled as progressive. So the first thing that we have to get across is the labeling. We have labeled concrete as progressive.
Okay.
Taking away, we have labeled Western philosophy too as progressive. But there's also African philosophy. And with that labeling, that's very little labeling. Oh, it's a beautiful concrete house. The mud house looks like a poor person's house. That affects the entire chain. So it means that if the solution to my problem, to creating a house that costs, say, 10,000 US dollars or say 6,000 US dollars, if I can create that house and use mud and say polycarbonate, the mud now becomes a problem. It means I have to spend the budget that I'd have used to make 5 houses to try to convince people about the fact that mud can be used.
Yes.
But therefore, that cost now goes back into the housing and then increases the cost. One way that we can get around that, and I hate to talk about government. I hate to, as an architect and as a business owner, I don't like to talk about what the government can do.
Yes.
I'm prepared to say what we can do to enhance things so that the government does its basic function and we may have a better society. But let's assume that the government, let's not assume, we know that the government has institutions like NIBRI, the National Institute of Building Research, National Building Research Institute, I think.
Yes.
Nigerian Building Research Institute, yeah, that has done work with mud and mud bricks and all sorts of bamboo and things like that over the past maybe 40 years. The problem now is that NIBRI has an office in Lagos. NIBRI doesn't have a social media account. NIBRI has an office in Lagos. NIBRI does not build experimental houses. So there's no showroom.
So they're supposed to be a research institute, but they're not researching anything, more or less. That's what it means.
Yes, they've researched it and they've written some books about it, and then they don't build anything. You know, if you go to the office, there's no show home for you to say, oh, that's fantastic. Perhaps I can try this. So if you want to build 100 homes, you can take the cooperative to that place and say, you know what, this is how it's going to be. Go into the house, feel it. Let's see what we can do to enhance this material. So the architect, for instance, we who are creating these sustainable, these affordable, sustainable houses, have to always start from zero with every client, with every group. So I have to convince you that I'm probably using aluminium over blocks because I'm reducing the cost. It's better for the environment. It doesn't allow heat. You know, I'm using polystyrene blocks as to create the floor because I want to reduce the concrete, and concrete prices are not very stable and things like that. Those little things that I'm not supposed to be saying to a client. I'm supposed to be able to show you. There's no way to show you. I have to make my show house and show every client that. But there are institutes in Nigeria that aren't doing that job, and they're there to do that job. And these things don't cost that much. You know, so that I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that that's the reason why mud has suddenly gone out of fashion. Because we want to be fashionable. And concrete is more fashionable than mud. Concrete needs less maintenance in the long run than mud. But concrete behaves horribly in an environmental sense. Horribly.
Okay. We'll get to those technical aspects. You have mentioned the lack of awareness, you know, in several ways. But the one that I will pick on particularly is the marketing aspect of things, which is why the architects have to start from scratch each time, you know, with the client, especially because in most cases you don't have the physical infrastructure on ground, you know, to be able to show clients. Houses are not movable in that sense. But houses are movable. Why can't you use, you know, modern technology, 3D designs and that kind of stuff to try to show, you know, those cooperatives, those clients, what these buildings look like? Yes, I know it could be a bit more expensive as well if an architectural firm like yours decides to invest in, you know, virtual reality or, you know, augmented reality to try to show clients, you know, what it is that you offer. But you could still do that using 3D technology, sustainably, I believe. So why is that not kicking off? Why is that not gaining traction?
Oh, well, I'm happy that my firm is a little bit tech savvy. So we are kind of on the cutting edge in a way of technology. But again, the thing is, when you have a culture that is based on touching and feeling, we're a very tactile culture.
Right.
VR doesn't really work. VR doesn't really work. He wants to touch the wall. He wants to see. He doesn't want to see. He wants to feel it. I read somewhere that where Africans are more spirit and less human. So they want to feel the space. as against see the space.
They want to have a connection, a physical connection.
Physical connection to the space. So you're going to have to, you eventually have to come back to trying to build. I don't have a problem with it. My basic issue is this: we need to create a way that people can see the firms like ours that can provide these solutions, yeah, on a large scale, and cooperate with financial institutions on a large scale.
Yeah, on a large scale.
With government too on a large scale. And I think I have an idea of how it can work. And if you permit me, I'll just run that idea very quickly by you. What I've been thinking about, because I'm thinking that every country should have a unique thing about it that is it's only the residents of that country and people who are citizens of that country that get that. And it's not a problem around the world. For instance, like in Dubai, the residents of Dubai, they get some positives from being residents of Dubai that no other country gives their citizens. Yeah, that's really, Dubai is the city. Anyways, so I'm saying that what if the Nigerian student that goes to the Nigerian university and graduates with a 2-1, a 2-2 upward? What if the government, like how birth certificates in a lot of countries are collateral, for the government to get loans from other countries? What if the government turns those certificates into a form of collateral that is equivalent to the price of a Kia Rio, which is what we've been canvassing for? We want to make houses at par with the cheapest Kia Rio, in most cases, so that if a bank can give you money for a Kia Rio, they can as well give you money for a house.
That's about 4 million or so, or thereabouts in Naira, I think.
Million, about 10,000-ish. Just a little bit over $10,000.
Yeah.
What if your certificate becomes your collateral and you don't get your certificate back until you've paid for the house? Your house costs 10,000. The bank provides the money. The government provides land in the outskirts of the city. HTL provides the technical side and builds the prototypes. So when you graduate from university, you go to your bank, they verify your result, they hold on to your certificate like collateral, and then you can come to HTL and choose a prototype, and we go to site. The good thing is you can also work, if you don't have a job at the point, you can work in that house and earn until the house is built. The house can be remortgaged if you don't have a job. So instead of the government providing 75 billion, for instance, for youth empowerment, it doesn't make any sense. If that money is pushed into affordable housing, to think the way I've thought it out, every graduate gets a house. He can remortgage that house to get the money that he needs to start a business, but he has where to stay. And therefore, he's not having to use 80% of his earnings to pay for house rent. Instead, he pays over time to the bank. What it will make is, in 2-3 generations, we would have financially strong middle-class youth that have now grown into adults and can pass wealth down to their kids. And that wealth can be converted into something that helps our economy.
This model that you're talking about sounds a bit familiar. If I'm correct, I'm not too sure. I'll have to confirm that, but it sounds like the model that was used in Libya under Muammar Gaddafi, when Muammar Gaddafi was. Yes, because they built houses, sporadically, and by the age of 20, you should have access to a house. And it was a case of, is that you definitely had to go for national service, and the national service involved military training and all that. And they had an engineering corps for the military training. So people, the youths were drafted to go and design, build, roads and also housing, provide water, things like that. So they were deeply engaged, in terms of developments, when it comes to housing. So that sounds a bit familiar. I'll have to reconfirm that, but it
Yeah,
sounds
please.
very similar to what you're saying. Yes.
But if it has worked somewhere, it means it can work again.
Well, yes, and what I find really interesting is this. Home ownership in Nigeria is 25% less than Kenya. Let me confirm. Yeah, 25% lower than Kenya and 56% lower than South Africa.
What? South Africa is 50 million people.
Yes. So when you look at it in terms of percentile, you can imagine the home ownership in a country like Nigeria, which is arguably the largest economy in Africa, having a 56% less ownership than South Africa. You now look at other factors like Dangote Cement. It's headquartered in Nigeria. But it is cheaper for you to go to Mali to buy Dangote Cement, put them on a truck, and drive them back to Nigeria and pay import duty on them than to buy in Nigeria.
Oh.
So we keep looking at these things. I have a passion, for housing, especially for eco or sustainable designs. So I keep looking at things like this and I keep asking myself several questions, as in, one, why, is housing so expensive? Yes, I can relate with the fact that because of the security challenges, people cannot afford to fan out, when it comes to major cities and go to the extremes or, outskirts of major cities and all whatnot. People might have security challenges and not want to do that. So everybody is crammed into one tight, small space. I can relate to that. But then there should be incentives that, look, you know what? Let's do a turnover model. The more cement that we sell, the more houses are built, the more cement that we sell. We might not get as much profit from this tiny batch of cement, but from a huge batch of cement, we'll get so much more profit. I don't understand why business in Nigeria is always inverse, but it's pretty interesting that you can buy cement in Mali and bring it down to Nigeria, paying import duty on it, and it's cheaper than buying cement in Nigeria.
That's a very tricky situation. Because the cement is made in Nigeria, it's a very tricky situation.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, there's land. Land is, you can find cheap land in some cities in Nigeria. So I lived and worked in Ilorin for a few years in Kwara State. And as of the time I first got to Ilorin, you could buy a plot of land within the city for less than 100,000 naira. And you could build for 5 million. But as of today, that seems like a 30-year ago, tale for you to be able to achieve that. It's just not possible. So is it a case of there's lack of cooperation between people? Because if cooperatives were still very functional, people should be able to have access to housing like they used to do in northern Nigeria. I would have thought that type of practice, would have spilled over into different parts of Nigeria where people would have said, you know what, Mr. Architect, sit down. This is the type of house that we want. You design it for us. You supervise it for us. As a cooperative, we will finance it. But we don't see that happening.
I've actually broached that to cooperatives in corporate Lagos. You know what? This is the model that I grew up with. This is what works.
Yeah.
You have money. We have technical know-how. You have land. You have. If you don't even have money, you can turn your land into collateral and get some money.
Of course, yeah.
These are our models. These are the prices. They're cheap. They're sustainable. They affect the environment. Why don't we build them for you? Then it becomes a problem. Because the cooperatives are not even. There's no unitary. It's about saving up a certain amount of money and then sharing that money. It's not about value anymore. It's about money.
It's about money.
Yes, and as an architect, I find that very tricky because architecture provides value. You understand what I'm saying? And especially HTL's architecture provides new value to the environment and to the user. So when you're talking about how to hoard money, when you have money, and I think that you can double your money over time by investing in a house for yourself and you don't understand that, it's pretty difficult to explain that to cooperatives. I've tried maybe 8 or 10 cooperatives in the past 3 years. Well,
Wow. Okay. You know what? We're gonna go on a short break. When we get back, we're gonna be asking you about the way forward, solutions. How do you think we could get awareness out there, make people understand what affordable housing truly is and how they can be accessed. We'll be right back right after this.
Amazing.
Hi, folks. If you're just joining us, welcome to another edition of Just Banter. Tonight we have our fantastic architect, a good friend of the house. His name is James Inedu George, and we are discussing access to affordable housing in Nigeria. We've asked him quite a few questions, but if you have missed it, I think you need to watch this again. So you can always, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Fromaradio, and everywhere you search, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, just type in Fromaradio. Our social handles will pop up. You can always watch any of the editions of Just Banter on any of those social media channels. Now, for our YouTube channel, please, 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 if you have not subscribed yet, go and subscribe so that you get notifications constantly. You never get to miss an edition of Just Banter. And you can catch up with any of the old editions of Just Banter on YouTube. Now, James, when it comes to affordable housing, we've seen you featured in a couple of international magazines of, strong repute when it comes to architecture. In one or two of them, you spoke about the footprints of a house. That is the size of the house. And you spoke about the different functionalities that could be incorporated into a house. All of this with the aim of bringing down the price of those buildings. You even went as far as coming up with a design that actually fits into the space of a car park space for one car in a car park.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on there? How did that come about?
Let's start with the footprint. You see, the economics of architecture is done per linear meter built. Okay. Especially when you dig the ground. Every time you dig the ground, you have to provide structure for that point. And for that run. So the less of the ground you dig, the less money you spend on the structure. It's kind of cheaper, especially in places like Lagos. It's cheaper to build columns and beams and create steel systems that can be put on a slab than to make the foundation itself. Because the foundation is made of pure concrete. And every line you see is filled with pure concrete. So what do we do in that case? Perhaps we should cut the house. And what we've cut, maybe you should put it on top of the old one. It's a very simple idea. You cut the foundation and then take that part and put it on top of the house. So the house becomes higher. You've already made the foundation. So the more space you can reduce on the ground, the cheaper your building becomes. It's very simple. Okay. The more space. So what affordable housing really is not just affordable materials. It's actually space planning. Affordable housing, cheaper housing is about space planning. And the
Okay.
problem that we have, especially in Africa, if you study the affordable housing models that are being built, we plan affordable housing as if we're planning houses for people who have excess resources. Yeah, you have the spread of the land. Then when it comes to
Yeah.
things that you enjoy, like a beautiful view, like a nice aesthetic, like a roof garden, things that they should enjoy. You take that away and make these very small windows, but you put the money into the foundation and into building walls that you have to cool the house for. Because the bigger
And
a
then
space,
you incur more costs because you have to buy
exactly,
AC. If you have
you
ACs, you
have
have to
to,
buy
so
generator.
exactly, now you have to cut the house lower so that you don't have to. And when you cut the house lower, it becomes hotter. So your ACs have to be twice as strong. Then you need a generator, which has to work twice as much. What HTL has done is to cut this thing, reduce the size, understand how to make space from nothing, reduce,
Yes.
figure out great ways of making of space planning, and that leads directly to being able to make a house that sits in a car park and has 2 bedrooms.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So now, from what you've said now, something just occurred to me.
Mm-hmm.
This concept is not new
Mm-hmm.
because if you go to like where they call where is that an area that is termed the Brazilian Quarters in Lagos Island, you will
Mm-hmm.
see that a lot of that's Anifowoshe, Oni. I've forgotten names of those areas. Anyways, but
SPO.
a lot of the houses in those areas were built with those types of designs. They had very small footprints and they went quite high, 4 floors,
Yes.
5 floors, kind of stuff. So there's actually nothing new about the designs or the concepts, that are coming up again now when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to architecture.
Mm-hmm.
But there are still very few and far in between. Why?
I think because we have an illusion that we have land.
Okay.
And that is a very big illusion. Because yes, there's land. But do you want to live in the middle of a forest? Answer is no. We all want to live
Okay.
as close to the city as possible, especially when you don't
Yes.
have resources. So where HCL is just advocating a new kind of life. The African of today, unlike in our parents' generation, is an urban person. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to be in the center of the city. Everybody wants to be where the Wi-Fi is good, where there are good restaurants. Everybody lives a semi-cosmopolitan life. In fact, we find that Africans eat less at home now. They reduced home cooking. So when you start to think about things like that, we spend less time at home. So why is our living room that large? We don't cook
Hmm.
2 square meals. So why do we need a kitchen that is as big as 3 people's homes? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So those kind of things, the way we have agreed to live, and it's a beautiful way because the world is changing and there's new technology, new techniques. We're making more, well, we're not making more money, but it seems like we're making more money. But our parents had more value with the little that they made than all the money we're making. So it's a delicate balance. But let's assume we're making more money. The thing is that we want a different kind of life, and that life is in the city. So the city attracts people. And we at HTL, we want people to live in the cities. We encourage the growth of mega cities. What kind of house are we going to live in the mega city? We have to create a new type of house, smaller footprint, higher, so that we conserve land.
Yeah.
Because land is the resource that, as much as we have of it, we can't really afford it because that land has a value to it. It's either house or farm, it's either house or church. It has a value to it. Therefore, we have to find a way to make houses as compact as possible so that a lot of people can live together. And unlike in other countries where a lot of people live on top of each other, we're looking at a situation where we can make a lot of people live side by side. A little bit like Lagos Island, but not quite. So we're learning from the past as we always do. But what we're changing is we're creating a system where you can build the entire structure in a factory. It's made of light steel. We bring the structure in bits and couple it on site. We're no more using the words like pour the concrete. We make one concrete slab and then we couple the rest on site. It's a monocoque structure. It's made how cars are made. It's made in a factory offsite, brought to site on a truck, coupled in a couple of days. Wet works are done, and then we start to clad the exterior. You have a house. We have to think like that. If not, we can't provide housing for 200 million Nigerians, and there's a deficit. They say that whenever you talk about deficit, about 30 million of homes. People always argue that they're constantly building homes in Lekki, but people can't afford those homes.
Well, even at that, the deficit, when they talk of the deficit, first things first, the deficit is way over the 30 million.
Oh yes.
Now the Nigerian, I did one of the theses that I did in business school here in Ireland was on the Nigerian housing market. Now, the affordable housing market in Nigeria between 2017 to 2027 is valued at $70 billion US. Now, out of that $70 billion US, you had the likes of Shelter Afrique, the Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria, REDAN, and the National Housing Foundation, or the Nigeria Housing Foundation, or something, whatever they called it. They all came together. They had stakeholders meeting and all whatnot, and they came up collaboratively with, take a wild guess, $3 million. Yes, $3 million in 2015, I think.
To do what?
To try to reduce the housing deficits. Okay, so now I am not an advocate of governments, especially when it comes to business. I am an advocate of the private sector. Now, if you have a market of this value sitting in front of you, one, why are cooperatives not functioning? Because that's supposedly the most effective way. You understand, of getting these projects across the line. Two, where is renewable energy in all of this? Because with the incorporation of renewable energy, you bring down the costs of home ownership down quite much. The market is inexhaustible. The weather in Nigeria, for instance, almost 24/7 is hot. So what do you need is the design flow of the buildings. When it comes to electricity, you have the sun. I mean, if they are using renewable energy in countries like Denmark
and Germany,
how many hours of sunlight? Yeah, how many hours of sunlight do they have in Denmark, especially when it comes to fall and winter? Do you understand what I'm saying? So these are all elements.
The tricky thing is that in Nigeria recently, they brought Siemens from Germany to build our power stations. Is that not ironic that you bring a German company that is trying to go green in Germany to build your power station?
In Germany.
In Nigeria.
You see, renewable energy is a totally different topic, if we decide to look at it. But we could just look at it in terms of the functions when it comes to owning a home in Nigeria. Because there are so many things, that I've seen some of the work that you've done. I've, read some of the things that you've written. Now, you talk of things like biodigesters, you talk of solar panels, you talk of small wind turbines, things like that. We know that these things can bring down the value, the cost of owning a building, especially when you split it, when you spread the costs, over a short period of time. We know that Nigerian banks don't like to fund you for long periods of time, maybe maximum they give you 17 years, if you ever get that 17 years. We know that happens. But even at that, if you're saying that a home can be owned for $10,000 thereabouts, US dollars,
Mhm.
Before the exchange rates, spiraled out of control, that was roughly about 3.2 million, or let's
Yeah,
3.6 million now.
3.64 million.
Is that inclusive of the cost of land?
No, we don't control the cost of land. This is the problem.
Okay, all right.
That's the reason why we still
So
need the government.
that's just the cost of construction.
That's cost of construction. That's a finished house, like an iPhone.
Yes. Okay.
You know.
All right.
Mhm.
So
So,
now, what suggestions do you have in terms of how to access, affordable housing?
okay, let's look at it from this perspective. Like you said, we have a big problem looking at affordable housing as a favor to the people, as against a business. Affordable housing
Yeah.
is the next business frontier in Nigeria. It's the next resource in Africa. Now, if we continue to look at delivering affordable housing as part of a political contract between ourselves and the government, this problem, $3 million will keep reducing. When they have those congresses, the $3 million will keep reducing till it becomes $3. Do you understand? So
Yes.
very important. And as HTL, why we're developing so many models is that it is very important to deliver housing as a business. It's not a
Okay.
charity event, it's a business. People survive off that delivery.
Yeah.
So when you have moved it from that model, or you have to get mortgage from the bank and all that, when you moved it from that kind of that remove that political chokehold, and it's not difficult to do. We've already started doing it by starting to make models, starting to access people on a private level so that people have direct access to us. And we are now trying to form more communal, like a more communal event of housing. So if I put together 300, 400 people, and each of them
Yeah.
has half a plot of land, HTL, they have X amount of money. HTL manages and produces 300 houses. We've reduced 300 houses from the deficit. And it has empowered us to produce maybe another 50 to add to that. So
Yeah.
until we have firms that can look at it, create a business model around it without prejudice and without emotions, we're going to have a problem. We're going to have this conversation in 10 years and won't have moved much. So it's very important.
But we already do have the problem, because when we
Yeah.
looked at the figures again in terms of the value of the affordable housing market in Nigeria, which is deficit in itself,
Mhm.
we now we rejigged the time frame, we rejigged the figures.
Mhm.
What we discovered was that over a span of 15 years, the value of that deficit is actually 110 billion US dollars.
And nobody has had the
Why?
smart idea to look at it from business.
Why? Simply because you still have that massive quantum leap in terms of population explosion
Agreed.
in Nigeria.
Mhm.
So you have a population where 65% of the population is under the age of 32. What does that tell you, in effect? So the market is going to keep expanding. And the more the market keeps expanding, there has to be more innovative ways for people to access affordable housing.
Mhm. Mhm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Agreed.
Now, I've looked at the way houses are built in Nigeria, for instance, where you have 80, 90 people on site all at the same time.
Yeah.
And then this construction job still takes 6 to 8 months, thereabouts, sometimes well over a year
2 years. Yeah.
for one building to be finished. I've been privileged enough to see, building construction in different countries. North Africa piqued my interest, and that is because I want to be able to relate it to what's going on in Nigeria, for instance. In North Africa, I see them using mud bricks. One. Two,
Mhm.
you see maximum maybe 6 to 8 people on a site, and that house is finished in 4 months. It's a massive 5-bedroom duplex.
Mhm.
Why do you have those large number of people on sites, isn't that adding to the costs of these buildings?
Oh, yes, it is. Redundancy of that level and that scale, it increases the cost of construction by 40%. This is why we're constantly trying to make, and because we think that our labor is cheap. That's another
Yeah.
problem. We have this illusion because labor is expensive. Even if it looks cheap, if you have 80 people on site, you're paying 80 people, whether they're collecting in naira a day.
Yeah.
If they build for 2 years, they are building for 360 days times 80 times 3. So you're still spending some money.
That's a lot
Okay,
of money.
that's a lot of money. So what we've done is, out of those 80 people, we're cutting out 70 people, easy. And the
Okay.
only when we're pouring concrete. Everything else is going to be done off-site, brought to site and coupled with screws or welded shut. Very simple. Very, very simple. Straightforward. So that the house, like I said, is like your iPhone. We perfect the parts and then we just couple them together. We perfect the parts where we can control that perfection. That's another
Yeah.
problem. Because we can't control the perfection of the parts, it means that you need 10 people to do the job of one person.
One
Because,
person.
yes, one person actually does the job, another person supervises him, a third person supervises the supervisor. The guy that is doing the job cannot pick the screws because if you pick the screws, you lose the sight that makes the thing either straight or curved. So one
Yeah.
other or two people have to provide the materials for him. So you already have 6 people. Yeah, we're cutting away everybody else apart from the man and his supervisor. Because if we can make it in a studio or in a factory,
Yeah.
it's perfect. All you need to do is to couple it using technical materials, technical equipment. That's it.
But when you're talking of using steel materials, for instance,
Yeah.
how sustainable is that in the long run as a business model?
In the long run, you see, we're actually hoping that steel mills, the steel mill picks up. But let's assume it doesn't. What steel does is that it reduces the amount of things you have to build.
Okay.
When you use concrete and it looks cheaper, a lot of these things are illusions. When you use concrete and it looks cheaper, for every one steel member, one steel vertical member, a column, that's what they're called, yeah? You make 5 or 6 concrete members. So what you think you're gaining, and you still have to put some steel in that concrete. So when you think
Yeah.
you're gaining by removing structural steel from the process, what you're doing is you're reducing and you're increasing the time of build, increasing the amount
Yeah.
of increasing the redundancy. Therefore, the steel becomes cheaper in the long run. What you can do with steel in a day, you do it for 3 weeks to 1 or 2 months in concrete because the concrete has to set for 21 days
Yeah. On
before
days.
you can do anything. And in that time, you're paying somebody to keep the concrete wet. So that's redundancy. But still, when you
Right.
couple your steel, you paint it, you spray it with fireproofing, or you tyrolene it. Your steel is there, it's set. That's a 2-day process.
So what? Why not recycled materials as opposed to steel?
Our recycled market is not very like this is another problem that we have. When we make affordable housing, we try to rely on these materials that are kind of sketchy. They are good materials, but they're
Yeah.
sketchy. We don't produce them in enough quantity for me to get them off the shelf. And if I can't get them off the shelf, it means I can't control the price. If I can't control the price, I can't control the labor cost. Therefore, no affordable housing.
Okay. Okay.
So we always try to use things as possible. Steel members, if we're forced to use concrete blocks, it's a certain kind of concrete block. If we're forced to use mud blocks, we like we did in Kano, we control the production of that mud block. We have the
Yeah.
machine and we make the blocks. We control the process and the entire chain. So these are the
because
things.
one of our viewers too has also, reiterated that point. His name is Adewi at the moment. He's saying we're always stuck, with the traditional way of doing things.
Yeah.
So we do really need to start looking at how to turn around, access to affordable housing for the ordinary man. Now, there is a difference between affordable housing and mass housing.
Oh yes. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people think that affordable housing means mass housing. So they probably shy away from it. Whereas all they needed to do was just ask a few more questions, and they would have understood that there's a big difference between affordable housing and mass housing. Now we'll take on board your talking point, which was that cooperatives are the way forward when it comes to accessing, affordable housing. We hope you'll be back, at some point on this show. We're going to be bringing on somebody who has a contrary opinion to everything that you have said in terms of access to affordable housing in Nigeria. Yes. He is of the opinion that for us to be able to address affordable housing sustainably in Nigeria, it is government, not the private sector, that can address the issue.
Not in any country.
Well, people have their different
mass housing and social
housing. Yes,
the government can take that on, and it becomes a quasi-communist model or a quasi-socialist model, almost like
socialist model,
like Europe, or a little bit like Russia. Yeah, but in our situation, we run a quasi-capitalist state. That can't happen. How does the government make its money? In the long run, it has to make its money. It's not a charity.
I think he's talking more of responsibility of government to provide housing.
Those days passed. We allowed them pass. It happens. It's like I used to play professional basketball, but I don't play anymore. So I can't play in the NBA. That day has passed. I'm not going to sit at home and wonder that, if I go to the gym hard enough, I'll play in the NBA. I don't even have the height. That day has passed. The government of Nigeria is a protective force. It's no more a provider of services. You provide your own roads. You provide your own light. It doesn't provide. The earlier we get that into our vocabulary, the better for us. In Nigeria, the citizen is a local government. Also in Nigeria, the house can be a citizen.
Yeah.
And that the house becomes a local government on its own. And you see that everything I've said is actually just telling you exactly what's happening in a concise fashion. The government can provide security. It's failing at that. It can provide light. It's failing at that. It can provide some other things. But it can't provide things like affordable housing. It can't. Or mass housing can't.
All right. So on that note, James Iledu George, I'd like to say thank you very much. This has been quite, informative as usual. We always pride ourselves on bringing very smart people onto Just Banter so that they can enlighten us. Especially somebody like me that I need to talk to people consistently so that I can learn new things every day. Because I need to try to be smart a bit, somewhere along the line. But the same way, so many people would also like to get some smart and intelligent information, from the people that ordinarily, if they can't interact with them, at least if they can see them online, then they are able to, get the type of information that they want. Not the tailored information that is thrown out there, and there's an assumption that it is for everybody. It is not for everybody. Every country has its own peculiarities. Every environment has its own peculiarities. So we need to talk to our own people who are experts or subject matter experts in their own field, who can tell us solutions to our own unique problems in Africa and Nigeria in particular. Thank you very much. Like I said, we hope we'll have you on the show again sometime soon.
I'll be very glad to be around again.
Thank you very much. We would appreciate that. You have a fantastic day ahead, because it's just the morning in Melbourne, Australia, and we are already at night here in Central, in Western Europe. Thank you very much, James. You have a
And
great
thank
evening
you for having
and talk to
you.
you again soon. Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So, affordable housing. This is something that, ordinarily the average Nigerian should be able to access affordable housing. If not mass housing, but at least affordable housing. But like he said, there are quite a few technicalities to it. Like one of our viewers said, we keep doing things the old way. But it's a start. We needed to start the conversation. We're starting the conversation. We need to keep the conversation going on. People need, to start sending their questions to their architects or whatnot. If you don't have any architects that you're working with or you think they're too expensive, send us an email or shoot us a message on any of our social media handles, and we'll be very glad, to pass them on to the likes of James Inedu George. I'm sure he would love to answer anybody's questions regarding, the access to affordable housing. We have all the materials, we have the people, as in terms of human resources, both skilled, unskilled, semi-skilled, we have everything. So why, are we suffering when it comes to housing? Why are we suffering when it comes to basic infrastructure? Cooperatives. We need to start looking at the cooperative model. Cooperatives will push, the country forward in leaps and bounds in every sector. It's already happening in the agricultural sector, where the cooperatives in the agricultural sector are even getting access to funding in terms of access to international loans being guaranteed by the CBA, being guaranteed by local banks, stuff like that, because they are properly structured now. So if you can be structured across board in different sectors, I am sure that at some point, having access to your own home should be something that should be easy going forward. We look forward to having you on the show again on Sunday. We're very grateful for those of you who are watching. For those who missed it, we know you're still going to watch it. We're very grateful to all of you. Like we said about 2-3 shows ago, we have gone much, much further than we ever thought we would. And that's because of you guys, because of your support. We could go a bit further if you would just go to the likes of our YouTube channel. Click or subscribe button. Click that tiny bell beside the subscribe button so that you get constant reminders every time shows are coming up on Fromaradio, or if it's just banter, just whichever one of them. Click on the subscribe button. Click on that little bell so that you get constant notifications. Now, there are a lot of social issues going on, like we said at the beginning of the program. And one of them, is something that we have followed up on consistently. We developed a campaign out of it. We're even supporting a Nigerian artist, a young Nigerian artist that's just coming up. Her name is TY. You can find her on Instagram at TY Official. And it is the issue of rape. We are still on it. We haven't forgotten about it. Like we said, we're going to be talking about it consistently until we see that there's a difference in the way the issues or the matter is being handled. 25% of women and 10% of men before the age of 18 in Nigeria experience abuse, i.e., rape. That's very high, because what that means is 1 out of 4 women and 1 out of 10 men. That can destroy a nation, because the mental health is being affected very deeply when people experience that type of trauma. We plead with you all, use the hashtags. What are those hashtags? Please use the hashtags. Please talk about it consistently. Please let people know that you are not in support of rape. Use no excuse. Use no to rape. Those hashtags are on the screen. You can also support TY Official, the young lady that came up with that beautiful song, No Excuse. You can support her by downloading her songs from the internet, Spotify, and all that. She's releasing a video of the video for the song No Excuse. I've seen the teaser. It's on, it's out there on social media. It's fantastic. Just a teaser, so you can imagine what the whole video is going to look like. So please, please, please support her. Support the campaign against rape. Now, COVID-19 is still very real. It's recently, killed somebody very popular in Nigeria, a senator of the Federal Republic, who died from COVID-19 complications. Please, we would implore you, keep a safe distance. 2 meters is recommended distance. Wear a face mask when you're going to a public space, be it, a supermarket, hospital, shops, public transport. Wear a face mask. Wash your hands constantly. Wash your hands. Not everybody can afford, hand sanitizers. In some cases, some people, their skins are very fragile, very delicate. They can't afford the dryness of, hand sanitizers and stuff like that. Yeah, just wash your hands. Normal soaps that you use, for your personal hygiene and all that is enough. If you wash your hands consistently enough and you avoid touching your face as much as possible, you're probably not going to be infected with the COVID-19 virus. Please, please stay safe out there. Nobody knows when, there's going to be a post-COVID-19 era. We don't know if we're ever, going to see the end of this. We don't know if we're going to have to live with it just the same way the human race had to adapt to the influenza. And we're all, catching common colds and all whatnot now. And everybody just says sorry because it's now common. We don't know when that's going to be. So this is the living with COVID era. Stay safe. Just keep the people around you safe. Make sure that you look after yourself. We hope to see you again very soon, which is on Sunday next week. Sorry, this coming Sunday. We hope to see you where we'll be discussing another deep social issue. And it's related to parenting, it's related to children again. We love children, so we're always talking about them. So we'll see you on Sunday. You guys have a great night. Good night.